SoulFist is a unique class that uses spirit instead of mana, kinda like Lee Sin in League of Legends. She has high average stagger, good destruction skills, and has one of the best movement skills. SoulFist's identity utilizes going into different phases of hype mode. Due to this unique system, this class is considered one of the hardest class among the Korean users. Because of this, the DPS difference between proper mechanic management to poor mechanic management is extremely high. Since SoulFist relies either high spec or high swiftness in the builds, it tends to be a little in the expensive end as well. SoulFist's identity has 4 modes of hype, 1, 2, 3, and recover mode. Each hype mode increases all of your important stats by a lot: damage, attack speed, and cooldown. Higher the hype level, greater the buffs. When the hype mode is complete, you go into recover mode, which you won't be able to activate your identity for some time. SoulFist needs to pre-plan their DPS in order to play efficiently and land all your skills during her hype phase. You need to make sure all skills aren't tangled up due to alternating between hype and recover phase. If you use the robust energy engraving, your hype starts from 3, going into recover mode right afterwards. Since you only use the 3rd hype, its effectiveness is boosted by the engraving. This build is often recommended by newbie starter SoulFists. There's a catch where you need to pull off all your DPS during hype phase 3. If bosses tend to run away or in a special gimmick, your DPS will be in shambles. The other build, Energy Overflow, provides additional damage if your spirit gauge is lower, so you would need to spam as many skills as you can to keep your spirit low. You would need high swiftness to spam skills as fast as you can. It is a speedy build compared to the robust energy build, but managing your hype will be much harder due to much longer recovery modes with longer DPS cycle planning. In summary, robust energy is a simple slower type meter management with slow big hits, while Energy Overflow is longer and harder hype meter management with fast combination of small hits. Both builds are in the meta right now, and DPS is surprisingly similar, so it is really up to your preference and playstyle. If you don't know what you want though, my friends suggest starting with robust energy. As for engravings, your first primary engraving should be your class engraving, second would be grudge and or curse stall. These 3 engravings are your BIS. However, if you're worried about the penalty of grudge and curse stall, maybe Master of Ambush, Adrenaline, or combination of Precision Dagger and Sharp Blunt is also a good alternative choice. If you go remaining energy, you'll be able to take increased mass as an optional engraving as well, due to your high attack speed from all the swiftness. You also have optional utility engravements, something like Spirit Absorption, Ether Predator, or Awakening. Combat stats are very simple. Robust energy needs as many spec as you can. Higher the spec, your recovery time drops. Your spec amount is crucial because less recovery time is more hype mode, which results into more overall DPS. Energy Overflow on the other end requires as many swiftness as you can for shorter cooldowns. Some tend to increase a little bit more on crit, but you need the swiftness to cover it up, because you're relied on your high swiftness to cycle all your skills fast enough to lower your spirit level. Both builds require a high amount of combat stats. Let's go over all the skills that most SoulFists use. In the category of utility, buffs, and synergy skills, first we have Pulverizing Palm. Usually put it at level 7, you have mobility, and you have your self buff skill. You can close gaps very easily. We have Bolting Crash. This is a counter skill. We have increase in speed and casting. We have the Synergy Tripod as well, which is 6% extra attack power for yourself and your party. And you have the regular damage tripod. So one thing to remember is all 3 hits are counted as a counter, which is very good. And we have Lightning Palm. You put this into level 10 if you want to utilize as a semi DPS skill. Also, you can utilize this first tripod to increase your weak point too. It does decent damage, but it tends to be a little slower to use it as a counter. And we have Flash Step. Usually use the mobility tripod and the self buff tripod. And you have an option to take the 3rd one to decrease spirit usage for the robust energy build. But most people put it to level 7 wanting to use this self buff. As you notice, you can dash 3 times, which is very good. One of the best mobility skills in the game. And lastly, most important skill, Energy Release. You usually put on the cooldown tripod so you can utilize it more. Most people put it on the cleanse section, and then you have the self buff tripod. Most of the time you will need to use this skill first before you land your DPS skills, because it increases your damage by 40%. Now let's go over the DPS skills. Heavenly Squash. This is one of your main DPS skill. Increase damage in tripod and use more spirit. Faster cast speed. And changes the animation into 4 different handprints. And we have Tempest Blast, an optional DPS skill. Usually put it on the cooldown side. And Damage Tripod, which it changes to a charge skill. And then another Damage Tripod. And we have Shadow Breaker, one of your most important DPS skill. Increase in damage when bosses are lower than 50% HP. A Damage Tripod. And another Damage Tripod. And we also have Force Orb, a sub DPS damage skill. Faster cooldown, increase in damage, and increase damage in tripod. This is a very quick casting skill for most SoulFists to use. And we have Crippling Barrier. We have cooldown tripod, increase in damage and use more spirit, and a damaging tripod with a pole. Energy Overflow SoulFists tend to use this skill because it's a quick cast and it does decent amount of damage. You can hold the skill fully if you want, but mostly just tap it. And lastly, we have the most important DPS skill, Merciless Pummel. Increase in the use of spirit and increase damage tripod, and increase damage tripod. This skill is your number 1 DPS skill, so make sure you land it properly with the back attack. Let's go over the awakenings really quickly. You have the Spirit Bomb, and then you have the Kamehameha Wave. Most people use the Spirit Bomb because it is a Spirit Bomb, but a specific Energy Overflow build tend to cancel the second awakening quickly to just get the set bonuses. This is a little bit advanced tactic, so you don't have to worry about it. I would suggest you guys use the Spirit Bomb. Before going into the playstyles of each build, you need to know SoulFists have a lot of self-buff skills. You need to make sure you activate them along with your hype mode to be efficient in DPS. When in hype mode, you need to make sure you use your main DPS skills as many times as you can with a shorter cooldown. Another thing to keep in mind during recovery mode, it is crucial to not use your main DPS skills or use a lot of skills in general. At worst case, your spirit will reach 0 and be locked out even further with tangled up skills. Patience is important during recovery mode. Let's talk about robust spirit playstyle. You should have about 3 to 4 utility skills, 2 main DPS skills, 2 sub-main DPS skills. You have skills like Flash Step and Pulverizing Palm to gap close, and then you have your self-buff Release Energy. If you happen to gap close with Flash Step, make sure you wait a little bit after you use your 3rd step, because if you use your skills too fast, you might get locked out at the spirit regeneration, unless you turn on hype mode. With that being said, the simple combination of skills are, you use Flash Step or Pulverized Palm to gap close, and then you turn on your hype mode. After you turn on your hype mode, you use Release Energy immediately. Afterwards, make sure you use your main DPS skills first. Make sure to use the self-buff skills first before using the sub-DPS skill. Afterwards, your utility skills will be back in cooldown, so it is important for you to use your utility skills first before you use your DPS skill. The cycle repeats from here. The skill management changes whether you're in hype mode or not. It is crucial for you to keep this in mind and forecast your fights. The playstyle of Energy Overflow SoulFist has the same mechanics of utility and DPS skills, but the cycle is a little different. First, you always turn on the hype mode to level 2. Level 1 is not very useful, so they tend to rotate between level 2 and 3 hype modes. Make sure to use your utility skills for buffs first before using your DPS skills, and the cycle repeats from here. For Energy Overflow, it is important to keep your spirit bar low for full damage efficiency. So before going into the 3rd hype mode, make sure to use Heavy Spirit user skills like Flash Step or Crippling Barrier before using your main DPS skills. The advantage of Energy Overflow is not worrying about locked in spirit regeneration, so you can use your DPS skills freely. Last bit of tip is Lostark's buff skills are always activated upon hit, it's not upon skill cast. So if you happen to use your main DPS combo, the Release Energy and Merciless Pummel right before the 3rd hype ends, you miss a lot of DPS, where it's better off not using the skill at all. But you can utilize this mechanic the other way. For example, Flash Stepping only twice during recovery mode, then utilizing the hype mode 3 when your hype meter comes back. This will have your Flash Step be on the hype 3 cooldown instead of recovery mode cooldown. So this covers the basics of how to play SoulFist. It's a challenging class, but if you play correctly, it's a very versatile mobile class that can deal a decent amount of DPS and stagger. Hope this helps, guys. Thanks. Bye.